He put down whole regions where he encountered opposition, and he brought the only real obstacle to his supreme power to its knees, the Orthodox Church. In a long letter addressed to his Politburo, Lenin clearly states his position. Despair brought about by hunger will change the public attitude. This is the only way. I conclude that now is the time to seize all church property and to wipe out the clergy in such a decisive and merciless fashion that the memory of it will live forever. The more church people we annihilate, the better it will be for us. Signed, Lenin. Lenin's orders were carried out to the letter. Church possessions were seized under the pretext that they were to be sold to provide food for the people. Members of the clergy were arrested, imprisoned, and executed with or without trial. Father Dmitri's two grandfathers were both shot under Lenin.
Nobody knows exactly how many victims there were. I would estimate about several thousand priests, deacons, and monks.
Were there women too?
Yes, of course. There were nuns, but there were the women who sold candles in church too. Very often it was the ordinary people who just liked to come and sing in church. It's also important to note that the confiscation of church property was carried out in such a way as to deliberately incite the local population to action. The soldiers arrived with a warrant and started pillaging the church. When the local people saw this, they would start to ring the bells, to call everyone together to protect their church. This, of course, led to confrontations with the soldiers, who then identified the leaders and took them off to be shot.
Valery Bronstein is Trotsky's nephew. He lives in Moscow and has spent several years trying to identify Lenin's often anonymous victims. He's put together files on several of Moscow's cemeteries, especially Donskoy, where numerous communal graves are to be found. These files are available to families hoping to trace ancestors who disappeared apparently without trace.
Svetkov Alexander, no party allegiance, Russian, shot. Mikhailovich Maffei, born 1898, son of a Tsarist army colonel, shot in 1923. These are the ashes of people from very diverse origins. There are well-known people and unknown people. Nobles, of course, ex-officers, but also people arrested on all sorts of pretexts. They were accused of anything and everything, sometimes even of spying. Priests, students, teachers, workers.
Yes, workers, the darlings of the revolution. This episode has been carefully kept off the historical record by the Soviet authorities. What is not on the official records is that the scandalous wages and the iron-fisted dictatorship of the Communist Party opened the workers' eyes, and they used the only weapon at their disposal to manifest their opposition to the regime: strike power. Pragmatic as ever, Lenin showed no hesitation. Forgetting the socialist doctrine he was supposed to embrace, he used his army to outlaw strikes and union rights, branding all those on strike deserters. In the Pravda of February the 12th, 1920, he wrote, "The best place for strikers, those vermin, those yellow mosquitoes, is the concentration camp." And once more, Lenin stuck to his word. Massive-scale early-morning raids and arrests of strikers and potential enemies of the revolution took place across the country. Many were shot without a hearing. Others went to swell the prison population, which soon reached saturation level. And so Lenin invented the chilling solution for the hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children to be removed: the concentration camp. In the party records in Moscow, in the section given over to Lenin, which covers several reinforced rooms in the basement, among the 35,000 documents written or signed by Lenin, we have found a decree dated March 1919. This decree hereby legalizes concentration camps and authorizes forced labor camps, one per region. It is signed Vladimir Ulyanov, Lenin in brackets, and is countersigned by Felix Dzerzhinsky, head of the political police. The first camps were located in the requisition monasteries. Then, in 1921, the Politburo ordered the construction of a camp for 20,000 people in the far north, in Ukhta. It was to hold peasants, workers, and rebel sailors. As Lenin had predicted, the plough of the revolution harrows Russia. Lenin had just one goal left, a goal that he had pursued since the first years in exile: world revolution. This handful of men from very diverse origins having fun on the Kremlin steps between them formed the International Communist in July 1919. They were the vanguard of a clandestine operation that was to change the course of history. Lenin set an ultimate goal to these men, all professional revolutionaries. This is the original recording. The first condition of this world revolution, the means which justify the end, must not be divulged. Europe and America were hostile towards Lenin, and he intended to show them the face he wanted them to see. For the 1922 International Conference in Gênes, he gave these instructions to Molotov. In the document to be presented to foreigners, eradicate any mention of violent and inevitable revolution or recourse to bloody struggle. Page 2, lines 2 and 3, completely eradicate the passage concerning our historical perspective, wherein it is stated that further world wars are inevitable. Lenin, to satisfy his obsession with a German revolution, was prepared for a worldwide war. The 1918 defeat and the fall of the emperor had plunged Germany into anarchy. Cold, hunger, and misery led the people to revolt right across the country. The proletariat was organized, the German party being the only European communist party to have a solid and structured framework. The German Communist Party took its orders from Moscow. In the summer of 1923, Bolshevik leaders decided the time was right to trigger off the revolution in Germany. The goal, to install a Bolshevik republic, including both Germany and Russia, uniting 200 million proletarians. Trotsky was in charge of operations. His first step was to order the infiltration into Germany of the elite of the Bolshevik generals.
А теперь хорошо известно, что нелегально в это время
Today we know that Stasov, Tukhachevsky and Putna were illegally sent into Germany to support their German comrades in the struggle to win the proletarian revolution.
To help organize an uprising?
Yes, absolutely. To support and to help the Hamburg uprising. Tukhachevsky, Putna and a few others were in Germany under false names for private business, let's say. They all had false names.
Trotsky planned to mass troops on the Polish border in case the uprisings needed reinforcements. The Bolsheviks also stocked huge quantities of wheat destined to feed the German people. On the 21st of October, the communists declared a general strike, but the shadow of the Soviets united the German army, the police and the Social Democrats against them, and the strike was a failure. At the bottom line, Germany intended to stay German. Hamburg alone followed directives, and after 30 hours of intense street fighting, the army managed to put down the insurrection. The Second Red October was a dismal failure, and as it lay in ruins, so did the dream Lenin had cherished of himself as conqueror, riding through Europe on horseback, red flag held high in his hand. Gorky, 40 kilometers outside Moscow. From 1921 onwards, Lenin spent most of his time in splendid isolation on this impressive estate. Paralyzed by arteriosclerosis of the brain, even intermittently unconscious, the leader of the first communist Soviet state spent his better days walking into the village and back. He even stopped to talk to the villagers, those peasants he had never known nor understood. One day, when Claudia Shulgina was 11, Lenin paid a visit to her parents.
The door opened, and Lenin walked in. He took off his shapka on the doorstep, came over to the table, and he started to speak. When the petrol lamps ran out, we asked Vladimir Ilyich if he could get us electricity. We told him how difficult it was to get hold of petrol. He said he would help us. That was in January. Throughout that winter, he sent wood for the posts and electric cables. And in the spring, they started the installation. At home, we always called electric bulbs Ilyich's.
Russia was in ignorance of its leader's real state of health. Stalin scrupulously vetted all visits and isolated Lenin from the rest of the world. Only family members were allowed to see him. The photos of the end, until now hidden in the vaults of the archives, show us the face of a man who no longer belonged to this world. The foremost revolutionary figure in history died on January the 21st, 1924. A magnificent state funeral was organized by the authorities. The party leaders, with Stalin at their head, arrived in Gorky to escort the body to Moscow with great pomp and ceremony. This was the beginning of the most widespread example of mass hero worship the world has ever seen. Lenin became a cult figure right there, as an unrelenting stream of hundreds of thousands of people filed past his mortal remains in the bitter cold. Evgenia Shista, a young communist militant, was in the crowd.
When we walked into the room, we were totally overcome. All the chandeliers had been covered with black crepe. An orchestra played non-stop Chopin's funeral pieces. There were massive mountains of flowers. There must have been several thousand wreaths displayed. We were so moved. We were all on the verge of tears, overcome with emotion.
This fervour marked the birth of a myth that was to last 70 years. For the first time in history, a man was embalmed and then presented to the worshipping masses. At the same time, the Politburo was scrupulously burying 6,000 manuscripts, letters and telegrams in the deepest recesses of the archives. Nothing must compromise the holy image of the humane, tolerant and dear departed Lenin. It is indeed proved today that at the end of his life, Lenin questioned himself on the path he and Russia had taken and on the possibility of the triumph of socialism. What is not proved, however, is any remorse for the deportations, executions and banishments ordered by his hand and in his name. In all the archives, there is not one single document that could lead historians to envisage such a possibility.
In the records departments, when I've consulted documents concerning my family, I've seen other files. I've seen written orders from Lenin. They're all the same. Shoot, incarcerate, deport. They prove his lack of clemency. I have never once seen a liberation order or anything showing any lenience. That's why I say clearly, Stalin was Lenin's heir. Stalin just continued what had been well and truly started.